Okay, good day. So for this day, pag-aaralan natin yung correlation, which is our lesson number 8. And specifically, mas kailangan nating maintindihan yung tinatawag nating correlation coefficient. Ano ba yung correlation coefficient? It is used to determine the strength of the linear relationship between two variables. So, ibig sabihin, we're going to compute the correlation coefficient because it will tell us the degree of relationship between two variables. Okay, and there are two types of correlation coefficient. One is the population correlation coefficient. It is computed by using all possible pairs of data values taken from a population. So pag ang ating pong ginamit pong data is a population data, yung population correlation coefficient ang ating kinocompute. And it is denoted by Greek letter rho. Okay? But if we're dealing with a sample data and then we want to determine the strength and direction of linear relationship between these two quantitative variables, this is what we call linear correlation coefficient. And we use the symbol R for the correlation coefficient. Now, the linear correlation coefficient that will be explained this day is called the Pearson product moment correlation coefficient, or PPMC. This is named after the statistician Carl Pearson, who pioneered the research in this area. Now, ito yung range of the correlation coefficient from -1 to +1. So, ibig sabihin, if there is a strong positive linear relationship between the variables, the value of R will be close to +1, while if there is a strong negative linear relationship between the variables, yung value ng ating R will be closer to -1. And if there is no relationship between the two variables, no linear relationships, ang value ng ating R will be equal to 0. Okay? And I have here the table that will guide us about the value that we're going to get about the correlation coefficient and its equivalent qualitative description. If the Pearson R computed is positive or -1, there is a perfect relationship between the two variables. If the value computed lies between positive negative 0.75 to less than positive -1, we have a very high relationship. Positive negative 0.50 to less than positive negative 0.75, moderately high. So pag positive 0.50 to positive 0.75, that is moderately positive high relationship. Pero pag negative 0.50 to negative to less than negative 0.75, moderately negative high relationship. Okay? Now, positive negative 0.25 to less than positive negative 0.50, we have moderately low. Greater than 0 to less than positive negative 0.25, we have very low. And 0, we have no correlation, or there is no relationship between the two variables. Okay? Now, and we have here a relationship between the correlation coefficient and the scatter plot. If the value of R equal to 0.50, mapapansin natin, positive yung value ng R natin, yung scatter plot niya, medyo layo-layo pa ng kaunti yung mga points. Okay? While if R equal to 0.90, yung ating scatter plot, parang nagpo-form na into a straight line. But if the value of R is equal to 1, yung ating points is something like kapag nag-draw ka nag-pass ka ng line, yung sa mga points na yan, mako-connect sila into a straight line. So we have a perfect linear relationship between the variables. Okay. Now, we have here another relationship between the correlation coefficient and the scatter plot. For letter D, R equals to negative 0.50, mapapansin natin, yung points natin show somewhat a straight line going in a downward direction from left to right. So we have a negative relationship between the two variables, pero scattered pa rin yung points. On letter A, we have R equal to negative 0.90, medyo close na yung points sa isa't isa. And on letter F, if R equal to negative 1.00, we have a perfect negative relationship between the two variables. That is, if x increases, y decreases. We have a negative relationship. We have the properties of the linear correlation coefficient. One, the correlation coefficient is unitless measure, so wala siyang unit. The value of r will always be between -1 and +1 inclusively. So ibig sabihin, if your computed value of r is greater than 1 or less than -1, so there is something wrong with your computation. Okay? If the values of x and y are interchanged, the value of r will be unchanged. Okay? If the values of x and or y are converted to a different scale, the value of r will be unchanged. Okay? 5. The value of r is sensitive to outliers and can change dramatically if they are present in the data. What does it mean? So kapag outliers, kasi I think na-discuss ko to sa inyo ng grade 10 kayo nung nag-take over ako doon sa subject na sa Russell. Na-discuss ko yung interquartile range sa inyo at itong outliers. Yung outliers natin, ito yung sa given set of data, siya yung extremely high at saka extremely low value. And sa pag-compute ng outliers, I think gamit tayo ng quartile 1 and quartile 3. Okay? And it will be multiplied to 1.5 to compute for the outlier. Now, kapag may outlier, sensitive dun yung ating R. Kasi masyadong malayo yung outlier from the given set of data, yung mga values niya sa other values, so naapektuhan yung R. Okay? O lumiliit yung ating relationship. Okay? Actually, lumiliit yung relationship. Okay? Because of the outliers. Now, we have the assumptions for the correlation coefficient. The sample is a random sample. The data pairs fall approximately on a straight line and are measured at the interval or ratio label. That is the scales of measurement. We have the nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio level. So, yung ating data pairs na measured siya at interval or ratio level. Number 3, the variables have a bivariate normal distribution, meaning if x is specific, y value is normally distributed. Kapag naman sa specific value of y, yung x values naman ang normally distributed. By bivariate normal distribution yung ating variables. Okay? And the formula for the linear correlation coefficient R is this one, R equal to n times summation of xy minus summation of x times summation of y all over the square root of n summation of x squared minus summation of x squared times the quantity of n summation of y squared minus square of summation of y. Yung n natin, number of data pairs. Okay? So, hindi tinatimes to yon. Data pairs yung ating n. Kung 10 si x, 10 si y, therefore, ang ating n ay 10 lamang. Now, here is our procedure table and in finding or computing the value of the linear correlation coefficient. First step is you're going to make a table as shown. The table ay merong x column, y column, xy column, x squared, and y squared column. Now, step 2, kukompute natin yung x squared column, y squared column, and xy column. Tapos kukunin natin yung summation nila. And then right after that, kukunin natin yung r by substituting the computed value dun sa ating step 2, dun sa ating formula. Actually, I'm going to give you the solution gamit itong ating procedure table. At the same time, going to give the solution gamit yung ating scientific calculator. Okay? So I'm going to give you examples on how to compute for correlation coefficient R. Thank you.